When does land cease to be occupied, stolen? As we look back through history, for pretty much all of time the human race has been at war conquering each other. What are the metrics for conquered land to stop being considered stolen? It can't be. Never consider the history of Europe and how no one is championing to return anything there to anyone, even though it's been taken over a multitude of times by a multitude of entities. It's usually when the war is over. It just so happens that certain groups would rather die than cease fighting, usually due to some irrational fear or belief, e.g. fear caused by Japanese propaganda describing fictional American atrocities during World War II. So the war never ends unless there's some fundamental shift in that mentality. In the case of Japan, the use of nuclear weapons was enough. I think there is a line in history between before and after the atomic bomb in World War II. After the atomic bomb, the stakes were raised. Most sensible people realized it made no sense to risk nuclear war over whatever could be gained or lost over a small border skirmish. So NATO was formed in 1949, and everyone agreed that the lines would be what they were. Efforts in Ukraine have been defending and reclaiming territory, but slowly as to avoid escalation. I'm not touching Israel-Palestine. Someone else can cover that. Ethnic groups shouldn't have land rights. It's an outdated idea that has no place in the modern world where nations should be built on values, not blood. People have rights to the land they hold, yes, but not based on their blood. The right of conquest ended in 1945 with the creation of the UN. Industrialization and nukes have changed the game, and imperialistic world wars needed to stop. You had to draw the line somewhere. And the world decided there was enough. Everything before WW2 is legitimate. Everything after WW2 is stolen. Not for any particular reason other than everyone got together after WW2 and said, holy shit, that got out of hand. Again. Okay, everyone. No more fucking with borders. X200B. What are the metrics for conquered land to stop being considered stolen? When the people living on it choose to live in peace. Emo by fifth generation. Most people can't even remember what was the name of their fifth direct ancestor. So that's that. One generation. Maybe two. If your claim to a land is that your parents used to live there. Well, guess what? The conqueror's children have that same claim. Really. No one should feel entitled to live in a place they've never seen. And no one should be forced to leave a place they've lived their whole lives. I think the only reasonable answer is that land cannot and should not belong to any particular person or group. If we are being honest, the act of land privatization has no legitimate moral foundation whatsoever. This is of course difficult to accept or abide by in practice. That is why it is ignored and why shaky arguments are found to justify it. Property is theft. I don't have an answer. But I'll gladly do land acknowledgements. Mostly to dunk on my British friend about how we took this land from George III. People usually stop talking about either because those who were affected are all dead by age or battle, or because they were forced to move and resettled elsewhere, or because they assimilate. Many of the cases that are still talked about are talked about only in countries that attempt to expose and deal with discrimination against minorities, and basically all of them are products of European colonialism. Most countries who have similarly imperialist pasts and presents continue to use such claims for political and even military justification. See Russia and Crimea, any area of the world that underwent forced Russification. If it's fresh enough that my parents remember when it was ours, it's still stolen. When enough third parties agree with you that they might be willing to help you defend your claim, And no one is willing to challenge your claim and are strong enough to pose a serious threat. That's a great question. I'm of Norman descent. And we stole lost land multiple times. We stole Normandy from the French. Then stole England from the Anglo-Saxons, who in turn had stolen it from the Celts. Eventually we got kicked out of Normandy. Wound up settling and creating an independent state in what is now Catalonia. Then got kicked out of there by the Aragonese. Does anybody care about any of this stuff nowadays though? No. Outside of historians, nobody even knows that it happened. It doesn't, because land has basically always been stolen from the first there. People just need to accept it, live together peacefully. But men like to war. Land can't be stolen. If you and your allies can't control it, it doesn't belong to you. If you have American finance and its warships protecting you no matter what you do, then the land is deemed to no longer be yours. Post-World War II, everyone is BTT heard about international borders not moving. So basically every bit of land taken pre-45 is fine, but anything taken later is stolen. Obviously there are good reasons for this, cause if you want a new order way of thinking you have to start somewhere, but people in, for example, Nagorno-Karabakh should have had a state internationally recognized as independent. Now the people of Nagorno-Karabakh have been ethnically cleansed and no one in the international community really cares. Assuming this is about Israel and Palestine, the consumption of land has to stop, or they're just resetting the timer to 0 days since land was stolen. When the people whose land was stolen are satisfied with a fair and uncoerced negotiation or reparations, ETA triggered much? What a shit world we live in. Make amends with victims? Never. When it's liberated by a guerrilla army like Hamas, the Vietnamese Viet Cong did it. The Afghan Taliban did it. Hamas will do it. The entire United States is built on conquered land. The conquered want their land back. They will never take no for an answer. As it should be. Victims don't forget so easily. It depends on if that line of attack has some kind of benefit for the person or group using it. It is very effective against a white majority in many Western countries because many whites have guilt about that sort of thing. Not so much anywhere else in the world because they don't give a damn, so the lines are not effective for anything. Land disputes of this nature were supposed to end with the creation of the UN. There is no right to conquest anymore because every country is supposed to act in accordance with the UN's decisions. Practically, land is given to whoever has the backing of the US. This usually correlates with race and imperialism. But no one actually believes in any moral boundaries. They only support what is most convincing to them. Right of conquest MFS get really quiet when you chuck a grenade at their family and conquer their homes. When does land cease to be occupied, stolen? When either the original inhabitants no longer claim it, or the original inhabitants are all dead. When the people occupied was stolen from, either all die or completely assimilate into the culture of the conqueror. If you can kill or relocate everyone who lives in an area, you should be able to claim that land as yours. It is hypocritical for conquered people today to claim their land was stolen. The time to assert that is when the conquest was happening. It stops being stolen when there are no survivors. Which is why genocide has been a real thing throughout history. Once it has been successfully conquered. Simple as that. Everyone is on stolen land. Humanity stole the land from the land-dwelling animals. So this is not a question done in good faith. It's mainly meant to sow discord and hate.